For more than a century, a small piece of land in the Middle East has been at the center of one of the world's most complex and emotional conflicts. Today, this conflict shapes global politics, international diplomacy, and the lives of millions of people. But to understand why this conflict continues today, we have to go back more than 100 years. Back to a time when the region known as Palestine looked very different from what we see today. Understanding this history is essential to understanding the conflict itself. So how did this conflict begin? To answer that, we need to start with the story of the land itself. For centuries, the region known as Palestine was home to diverse communities. Muslims, Christians, and Jews all lived across the land, in cities, villages, and trading towns. During this time, the region was part of the vast Ottoman Empire, which controlled much of the Middle East for hundreds of years. For the most part, communities lived side by side, connected through trade, agriculture, and local traditions. But in the late 19th century, new political ideas began to emerge in Europe. One of those ideas was the rise of a movement known as Zionism. Supporters of this movement believed that Jewish people should establish a national homeland in the land historically connected to their religion and heritage. At the same time, the land was already home to a large Arab population that had lived there for generations. As Jewish migration gradually increased in the early 20th century, tensions between communities slowly began to grow, and soon global events would push the region toward a turning point that would reshape its future forever. In the late 19th century, a new political movement began to take shape in Europe. It was known as Zionism. The idea was simple, but powerful: to create a national homeland for Jewish people. This movement was shaped by centuries of persecution faced by Jews in different parts of Europe. By the late 1800s, some leaders began to believe that safety and security could only come through having a state of their own. One of the key figures behind this idea was Theodor Herzl. He and others began promoting the idea of Jewish migration to the land historically connected to their religion. At the time, that land was part of Palestine, where an Arab population had already been living for generations. As migration slowly increased, tensions between communities began to rise. But the situation would change even more after a global war reshaped the region. A war that would bring a new power into control of the land. In the early 20th century, a global conflict would reshape the Middle East. This was World War I. When the war ended, the Ottoman Empire collapsed after centuries of rule. As a result, control of many former Ottoman territories was transferred to European powers. Britain took control of the region known as Palestine under what became known as the British Mandate. But even before the war had ended, Britain had made a declaration that would have lasting consequences. In 1917, the British government issued what became known as the Balfour Declaration. It expressed support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. At the same time, it also stated that the rights of existing non-Jewish communities should not be harmed. However, the situation on the ground was far more complicated. As Jewish immigration continued to increase during the British Mandate, tensions between communities grew more intense. Protests, clashes, and political disagreements became more frequent.
Long live Palestine! Freedom!
By the mid-20th century, the situation had become increasingly difficult to manage, and soon, the future of the land would be placed in the hands of the international community. By the mid-20th century, tensions in Palestine had reached a breaking point.
This is our land!
Britain, facing increasing pressure and conflict, decided to step back from governing the region. The issue was then brought before the United Nations. After months of discussion, a proposal was introduced in 1947, a plan that aimed to divide the land into two separate states, one for Jewish communities and one for Arab communities. The proposal became known as the United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine. Jewish leaders accepted the plan, while many Arab leaders rejected it. For many, the plan raised deep concerns about fairness, land, and the future. And instead of resolving the conflict, the proposal intensified it. Within months, violence began to spread across the region. And by 1948, the region would be pushed into full-scale war. In 1948, the situation in Palestine reached a turning point. Following the end of British rule, a new state was declared, the State of Israel. Almost immediately, war broke out between Israel and neighboring Arab countries. What followed was months of intense fighting across the region. During this time, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were displaced from their homes. Many villages were abandoned or destroyed. Palestinians remember these events as the Nakba, meaning catastrophe. In Israel, the same war is known as the War of Independence. By the end of the war, the map of the region had changed dramatically, and the conflict had entered a new and lasting phase. More than 70 years later, the effects of 1948 can still be felt today. A conflict that began over land, identity, and history continues to shape the modern world. More than 7 decades later, the conflict that began in 1948 remains unresolved. Today, the region is divided, with ongoing political tensions and periodic violence. At the center of the conflict are deeply rooted issues, questions about land, borders, and sovereignty. The status of Jerusalem, a city sacred to multiple religions, and the future of millions of Palestinians and Israelis. Over the years, there have been many attempts at peace. Some brought hope, but none have fully resolved the conflict. Today, perspectives on this conflict still differ across the world, shaped by history, identity, and personal experience. And for many, the past is not just history. It is still part of everyday life. So the question remains, could this conflict ever truly be resolved?